Let's get into today's episode of Why We Succeed. What is going on, everybody? It is your man, Immanuel, and we are back for another episode of Why We Succeed. Today, I am joined by a very, very special guest, the one and only Loreal Patterson. What is going on with you?
Nothing much. What's up with you? How you doing?
I am so excited, so honored to have you on the podcast. You are a successful business owner, shea butter and intuition. You got your journal business, doing your thing out here in the world. And I had to have you come on to talk to our fellow aspiring Black entrepreneurs. You know, I know there's some people out there who have an interest in starting a journal business, and I definitely want to dive into what that experience has been like for you. But I always like to start off with one simple question. How do you personally define success?
You know what? So this is not my first time asking this, and I feel like every time I get asked, it's always kind of like a different response, just kind of based on where I am. But as of late, I think success is freedom. I think success is being able to own your time, being able to move how you want to move. Kind of being able to just kind of do what you want to do without the obligation of having to be somewhere for somebody else, in any type of capacity. So it doesn't just necessarily have to do with work, but just in your personal life. I think that success is being able to define things on your terms, and really being able to own who you are and show up in that way every day, all day.
I love
Seriously.
that. That is amazing. And to kind of piggyback off of that question, how long would you say you've been experiencing that level of success in your life?
You know what? So when it comes to that level, I think as of recently, I feel like I definitely have been experiencing it, but that's because of the choices of intention that I have been making to experience it. And for what it's worth, I feel like I've also experienced it in other aspects of my life at different times. I just don't know if I knew it at the time. But in looking back and consistently doing reflecting, consistently auditing my life, I definitely feel like I can recognize times and places and spaces where I definitely experienced a freedom and liberation that came from success. But as of late, I've been being so intentional about it because it is just so important for like a good balance of like livelihood. So
it is, like you said, making those intentional choices. And that brings to mind, when did that switch kind of flip for you? When did you recognize how important it is to make intentional choices?
As crazy as it is, I feel like so many other people did. It's probably during quarantine.
Right.
You know, you're in the house.
All we had to do was sit in the house and get it together.
That's literally what happened. I feel like when you're sitting in the house and the things, your usual day to day is kind of stripped from you in a way in which you have no control over. For some, let me not say everybody, but for some, you have no other choice but to sit in it. And then you begin to think about like, what does my life look like? What is important to me? What do I actually need day to day to be happy and sustained? And that is when I feel like I've pivoted the way in which I show up in the things that I do. And that is when I realized, like, you know what, perhaps I don't need these other things as much as I think I do. And now it's just about simplicity. It's like a different, I've always been about a simple life, but simplicity now looks very different for me and it's very minimal.
Yeah. And switching lanes a little bit, kind of looking at it from a business perspective, I think one of the things that we often have to learn as entrepreneurs is you can't do everything, right? And I feel like the sooner we recognize that, the better off we'll be. So all of our aspiring entrepreneurs out there, if you don't hear anything else, hear this, like, figure out the main thing that you should be focused on and center your attention there. And that just brings to mind what you were just mentioning. What were some of those things that you felt you either had to let go of, you had to discontinue doing, or cut off completely?
Yeah, absolutely. So one of the things I had to let go of is this idea of being able to do it all on my own. One of the things about me becoming a business owner is that this was not a goal for me as a young teenager, a young adult. This was something that just kind of snuck up on me as I seen a need in the stationery industry. And so in thinking about that and knowing like, okay, I like stationery, but I know nothing about paperweights. I know nothing about the manufacturing of paper and the way in which you make journals or planners or what have you. And so really diving in and doing research and knowing like, okay, I'm going to need some help with this.
Right.
And so I became vulnerable in that way where I was reaching out to people. And luckily at the time I had found a business coach while living here in Austin who
Nice.
really got my foundation going because she
Wow.
is a self-pronounced serial entrepreneur. So
Okay.
she has started businesses over and over and over again, and she sat with me and was
Mhm.
patient with my frustrated moments. Because since I'm so much of a perfectionist, it was
Okay.
difficult for me at times to see the vision she had against what
Mhm.
I thought I knew. And so
Okay.
relinquishing that power was so important because it's like, girl, this girl is trying to help you and you need to allow her to because you asked and are paying her to do so.
Facts.
So, yes, I had to like step back, which was
Mhm.
not something that was easy.
Right.
But the reward was like so much, so very worth it. And so, definitely become vulnerable, letting go
Mhm.
of my perfectionist ways, allowing someone to help me, but then also owning my mistakes. Like a lot of people don't know this, but the first journal that I dropped, I was not in love with. I love the cover, but I did not like
Okay.
the production and the outcome because at the
Okay.
time, the manufacturer that I was working with didn't necessarily produce what I wanted, but I was on a
Mm.
timeline. And so I was like,
Mhm.
you know what? I got this. Let me make it work and then I'll fix it next time. And that's what it's been is consistently finding ways to improve my product so that my outcome represents exactly what my mission and my vision is. So it's
That's
a
the
lot,
thing.
but it's
Oh
worth
man.
it.
Right. You dropped a lot of gems there, and I'm gonna try my best to extract as many of them as I can. I'm gonna put pins in some of them because I know we'll explore it later on in our conversation. But I want to kind of start with your journey. You had mentioned that when you go back to those teenage years, those younger years, you never thought that you would be an entrepreneur, and I like the way you put it. You said it kind of snuck up on you, you know.
Mhm.
And I'm curious, what did that process look like? What were you taught about business growing up, and what was that sneaking up moment like?
Yeah, so to be honest, that just wasn't a conversation that happened in my household.
Mm,
I come from parents who only have high school diplomas. And so
mm,
when it comes to business, I feel like that was just something that just was never put on an option, like put on the table as an option to pursue.
okay.
I honestly feel like it came from probably my dissatisfaction of my job at the time and feeling like I am way too talented for this, which I know so
Right.
many people who are entrepreneurs, that is how they got to where they are, is feeling
Fact.
like I'm above this right now. And that is very valid and okay.
Yes.
And so the thing is, at one point prior to 2020,
Hmm.
when I first thought about the ideal of starting a business, I was actually going to start with t-shirts. Because,
Okay.
at one point, t-shirts with popular sayings were so
Right.
like it.
Hmm.
And when I started doing the research, I was like, I am not feeling this. Like, I was just thinking about it like, I just am not in love with it. It just doesn't captivate me. I don't want to
Right.
wake up and think about selling t-shirts every day. So for
Hmm.
a while, I put that on the back burner and just kept focusing on my career and trying to figure out like what industry I wanted to work into or
Hmm.
go into. And I think the idea crept back in when it comes to becoming a business owner. I think after working at my current job and getting exposed to what I would believe will be considered a startup
Hmm.
and seeing the different changes that my current job was going through and thinking, I could use these skills. Like this is an
Right.
experience that I feel like aligned. It was the reason why I'm in this space. And so
Facts.
slowly but surely I was taking the things I was learning at work and making note of them and thinking
Hmm.
about how I can implement them later. And so
That's
the beauty
wise.
of that, yes, is taking those skill sets. And I was like stuff about finance. I was acting our finance director. Like I have nothing about numbers. How do you keep track of this?
Right.
So taking that information, she don't know. Not only was I asking about it for the job, but I then took that information and was like, okay, so this is how I can implement that in my business. This is how I can keep track of my expenses.
Mm,
And the whole journal thing just came about because naturally I love to write things down.
okay.
Naturally, I am a planner. I'm always pen and paper. I like electronic stuff, but
Hmm.
I just can't get with it all the time. Like I have to write it down in order to remember and to like really stick to it and be disciplined. And so I was just like, I really never see journals that represent Black girls. Like
Right.
it is always this very generic thing that I feel like stay at home moms have kind of taken over the industry. And I'm like, wouldn't it be so dope if we just seen, certain lyrics and certain cultural things that we identify with on the front of a cover? Like, wouldn't that make you want to pick it up more?
Facts.
And that
Yes, it
is how
would.
I, yes, that is how I came up with it, is just thinking like, if I could just, like, literally, I went so far when I first thought about it. It's like, I could see this in Target. Like, I could see dope Black girl journals in
Yes.
Target,
Yes.
um, where people have access to it, or, any other store. But, Target is the goal.
Yes.
Something about
Yes.
Target is like peak.
Especially within the community.
Yeah, that's like peak, like,
Right.
whatever.
Yeah,
But
you made it, mama.
you made it. If I
Mama,
go
I
to
made
Target, you can't tell me nothing. Listen, I'm in
it.
the streets. Put some respect on it. But
Right.
yes, like, for real. So it definitely was the thing where I was just like, you know what, I'm gonna do it. And I remember going into therapy one time and I was like, I
Mhm.
think I want to start a business. And she's like, this is a new topic. I'm like, yeah, let's talk about it. So, and here I am. I did it
I
and I
love
took
that.
my time and it was worth it.
Oh man, you stay dropping so many gems. Like you were just saying right there as you was closing out, you took your time. That's so
Hmm.
important. And just knowing what you didn't want to do too, right? Because I
Yes.
think that that's important along our journey too. Because especially in today's day and age. And I have to admit, even our podcast to a certain extent is a proponent of it when we have so many of you amazing guests come on and you're doing so many different things. If a person has yet to decide, they can be like, oh man, I want to do this. And then next week, I want to do that. And coming to that place where you can recognize this isn't really my lane. And the sooner you can get to that place and say, I think that that would be a great idea. I think that I would be successful in a business doing that. But to your point, do I want to wake up every day and do that? I think that that's a really great question for our aspiring entrepreneurs to ask themselves is not, can it make you a lot of money? Not, can you be successful at it? Those things are important, but
Hmm.
can you see yourself doing it every single day, waking up and saying, I'm going to do this? And it's amazing that you were able to find something that you could answer that question affirmatively and say,
Yeah.
yes, this is something that I want to do every day. And you
Hmm.
have a mission that's driving you to have those journals in a place, the main place, Target,
Yes.
where other amazing Black women can see them and say, hey, that speaks directly to me. So
Yeah.
I really love that. I love that. Now, I know that this journey hasn't been easy. So I would love to know, like, what have been some of the challenges, some of the maybe even limiting beliefs that you've had to overcome?
So, one of the things that I had to really sit down and remind myself when I first started this journey is this is my first time doing this. I think
Mm,
so often when people get into entrepreneurship, there could be this feeling of like, why don't I know this?
right.
Why can't I figure this out? But the thing about being an entrepreneur is you're going to do a lot of the things that you love to do, and then you're going to have to do a lot of the things you hate doing. And then you have to figure out, how do I get the things done that I hate doing without
Hmm.
completely neglecting them, because it's
Right.
easy to not want to do those things.
Hmm.
So much so when I first started out, I think one of the things that I kind of got caught up in is, and this is something where I didn't even expect for this to happen, is upon launching my business, there were so many people who didn't have a business that wanted to tell me what to do with mine. And
You already
unknowingly,
know.
listen, and I'm like, okay. And unknowingly, the thing that was for me so frustrating is all these people trying to tell me what to do and me trying to listen and be considerate. But at the same time, I'm like, Loreal, you've done this research. You know why you're doing it the way you're doing it. You know why you have the processes in place and why you are handling your business the way you want to. And so many people were like, you should consider doing this. You should make this. You should make this type of. And I'm just like, and for so long, I listened to them so much so that it burned me out that
Mhm,
first year. So by the time, mind you, I launched on my birthday in October of 2020. By the time 2021 came, I launched
mhm,
one journal in like February. I
mhm,
literally took the rest of the year off. So
mm,
the thing is, I just kind of disappeared, like, done. Because I was so burned out between like all of people, like all these people in my ear, me listening for whatever reason, feeling like I was obligated to try to meet these expectations,
mhm.
and just all the pressure of like showing up in a way that I'm like, y'all, this is my first time. I
Right.
am a one woman show. And for
Mhm,
what it's worth, the thing that I think people have to remember is if you are in it for the long haul, you will have time to make the changes and do the things you need to do without feeling like you have to do it within the first 6 months, within the first year, within the first 5 years. Ultimately, if you stick to it, you will get where you want to be. And one of the things that I know that I like struggled with was social media, because naturally I am not a person who enjoys posting. I don't go live. I don't make reels. I don't like none of that stuff. Like, I am
Right.
naturally a low key person. But listen, when you have a business, people are not just buying your product or investing in your services. They are investing in you. They have to
Mhm.
see, do I connect with this person on any level? Can I identify with what they're talking about? Do we have anything in common? Do I like them as a person and their
Mhm.
personality? And that is essentially what sells. Yes,
Yeah.
your products are good, but what sells is you as a person. So you are having to constantly figure out, well, let me say, I am constantly in the space of figuring out, how do I show up as the owner or, small business of Shea Butter and Intuition, while also
Mhm.
just being L'Oreal? Like, how do
Mhm.
I balance that? And how do I create boundaries so that I don't feel like I'm giving so much of myself that doesn't feel natural to
Right.
give? So it's a
Oh
lot.
man, it is. It is. And what you mentioned about other people is so vital. It's so key. And oh man, everybody has an opinion when you're doing, and let me be more specific. Everyone who has yet to do what you're attempting to do has an opinion about
Yes. Oh
what
my
you are
God.
doing. And it's so interesting because typically the people who have already done what you're doing, they are focused on what they're doing. So the only time they're trying to pour into you and give you their opinion is one, if you paying them to,
Yes. Number
and they
one.
giving you the gems, or there's some type of mentorship that you have with that person and you've asked them to provide you with insight. But oftentimes successful entrepreneurs and business owners are not just looking for people to just talk their ear off and tell them what they should be doing in their business.
Hmm.
Like, you're too focused on your own. So
Exactly.
I am so glad that you brought that up because we have to be so aware of who are we taking advice from.
Mm.
A lot of people
Yes.
have opinions, especially those who have yet to do the things that we're trying to do. And I think it's our responsibility to not listen to those people. Because they're going to do what we allow them to do. And I think sometimes we have to recognize that we have to put our foot down to a certain extent and say, hey, you know what? I appreciate you. I understand that you're trying to
Yes.
help, but I got this for right now. And to your
Yes.
point, I love the way you said it. Like, this is my first time doing this. That right there, that is
Yes.
a gem. That is something that even me, like, I have to be reminded of that. There are new things that I'm in the process of starting, and I have these visions in mind, or these things that I want to accomplish. And sometimes I can be so focused on what I see down the road that I'm
Yes.
trying to make that happen now. And I'm like, yo, you are not in the place where you can produce that right now. Like, there are steps that you are trying to skip, and
Yes.
you got to fulfill those first. And it takes that weight off of you. At least it does for me in
Hmm.
my instances. When I recognize and say, hold on, that's the vision for the long term. What does it look like now to get me to that point?
Hmm.
Because I have to just focus on that. What can I do now successfully that will lead me to get to that place in the future? And that just takes that stress and that weight off of me, at least, to not be looking at where I want to be and where I'm headed, and focus on where I am right now and what I can do in
Yes.
this moment. Yeah.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And then not get caught up in the um, instant overnight success. These
That.
people who be on social media be like, I started my business overnight with $100. And I'm like, that's a lie.
Right.
There's no way. I don't believe you. That's impossible. Like, I just
Nope.
can't, I cannot subscribe to that. Like, I just
Yeah.
don't believe it. And I'm just
Hmm.
like, no, you had some money somewhere tucked away
Facts.
that
Facts.
you invested. So,
And I'm curious, how you process this. I know you had mentioned earlier that you're not a fan of, like, the posting and being all over social media and stuff. And I know sometimes I have to take a step back from it because, like you mentioned, there are a lot of people that are speaking about their successes, their progress, and sometimes even that can get overwhelming. It's not to the
mhm.
fact that I'm, like, mad at what they're doing, but it just that comparison starts to creep up where it's like, yo, I'm not there yet. And I'm like, I don't want to get discouraged because I'm not there yet. And it hinders what I'm doing now. I'm curious, have you ever found yourself in that position where you're looking at the success of other people and you get to that place where you're like, man, I think I need to stop even tapping into what they're doing?
Do I? Listen, that was part of the reason why I took a break in 2021. Let's be honest, okay? Because
Yeah.
I was caught up. I was like, these people got warehouses. These people are selling,
Right.
making millions. So let me tell you how I navigated that.
Mhm.
So a couple of things I did. Number one, I have my business account on Instagram and then I have my personal account.
Okay.
I stopped being on my personal account as much because that is where those images showed up.
Okay.
And like you, I didn't want to not follow those people because I do find what they're doing inspirational, especially when they look like me and they come from similar upbringing, so to speak.
Mhm.
And so what I did was instead of being on my personal account, I would be on my business account.
Okay.
And I would like purposefully monitor who I choose to follow. Like just because somebody follows my business account does not mean I have to follow them back.
Right.
And I mean, it goes the same for personal, but especially for business.
Mhm.
And so I will be very, very, very mindful of who I follow so I know who and what was showing up on my timeline. I controlled it a little bit better. But for those people who on my personal account that did have this like amazing success, I would find myself more often late at night when I'm like winding down, the day
Right.
is over, I got a little extra time on my hands. I would scroll all the way to the bottom of their feed because what I see is not where they started. And so I would scroll to the bottom of their feeds and see all of the stuff that they were doing before they got to where they are. And I would see this started in 2014. And I will remind myself, like, L'Oreal, these people are almost hitting a decade of doing this.
Right.
You just got started. Like, look at what they've been doing. They've been consistent with their posting, consistent with being vulnerable. They started out with one product, 2 products, taking pictures at home with an iPhone, exactly where you are right now. Give yourself time. Give yourself time. I would also always go and listen to their podcasts. Like if there are certain people which there are a lot of Black women who are entrepreneurs that I absolutely admire. I would listen to anytime they spoke on a podcast or did any type of interview. I would listen because that to me is also showing a side that a still moment or a quick 10, 15, 30-second reel doesn't show. Because more often than not, the things that they show on Instagram are curated to make you want to buy. It's very targeted type of information that's being shared. But to me, the gems and the things that they share in podcasts are very much about where they came from and how they got to where they are.
Right.
So I became very intentional about how I consumed information. And then I also had to really fact check myself and say, where were they? Where are you? What's realistic? Because it ain't that I can't be where they are. I just can't be there right now. I have to be patient. Yeah, I have to be patient. I have to be consistent. And I have to recognize that they put in the work that I'm putting in now. And I also have to recognize that, these people have been sharing who they are for years. That is why, like, even sometimes I used to compare followers, like, wow, this person got like 5,000 followers, or I don't know, 1 million followers, whatever. But when you've been consistent and posting on social media since Instagram first launched, it is to be expected that you have a lot of followers, and I'm like, let me not, allow that to be discouraging because it takes time. Like, that's just the reality of it, is that it takes time. And I can't allow that comparison to be the thief of joy. I have to celebrate my small wins.
Most definitely. Oh, man. I needed to hear that because I'll be the first to admit that I experienced that too along my journey. And it's tough. It really is tough sometimes to manage it because as much as I see what other people are doing and it's exciting and it's dope and, it's motivating. If you tap, or let me be specific, if I tap into it at the wrong time, it can be more of a hindrance than it can be a motivator. And I think that is where I have the responsibility to say, what type of state of mind am I in before I just start mindlessly scrolling through social media and looking at what other people are doing? Because if I'm not in a position of feeling strongly rooted and grounded in what I'm doing and where I'm at, then this may not be the time for me to scroll through because I may be susceptible to be comparing myself to, like you said, comparing my year 1 or 2 to somebody else's year 10 or 12. And it's just like, when you do that, it's not an apple to apples comparison.
It's not. It's not. And it's unfair to minimize everything that you've done to get to where you are, because I think
Mhm.
sometimes people don't even realize that just the start, like producing the first of anything, it takes a lot to even get there. Like, I think sometimes people don't even realize just putting out one product, providing one service, recording one podcast, and making it like quality,
Mhm.
it is not like an easy task. Now,
Uh,
once again, you could throw anything together.
right.
Now let me not, if you want to just go ahead and just whatever, you could throw
Yeah.
anything together. But if you are looking to, like I said, do this for, whatever, you want to wake up 2, 3, 4, 5, 10 years from now and see yourself in a very different space, then you have to plan and like think about the foundation, because once you have a good foundation, building up is going to be easy. But if you start
Mhm.
out trying to skip the steps, and that's one thing I hated when I first got started, how did you get what worked for me may not work for you. I chose these things because I did the research and this works for me. But people
Mhm.
want to skip the research and skip the grind, if you will. And you can't. You have to
Mhm.
be like, they're like, where you get your journals printed? Do you know how long I had to research manufacturers? And you want me to just give you,
Right.
like, how unfair is that to me? Let's be
Mhm.
honest. So I get it, but you have to definitely celebrate the small wins and say, you know what, I have a bomb product and it's going to be much better as time goes forward. So,
Yeah. So real. And I just wanted to take the moment to talk about that because it's a reality, for sure, for, people who are already current entrepreneurs and even those who are aspiring to prepare them for that moment, because it's definitely possible to fall into that trap. But I want to go back to something that you've mentioned multiple times and you actually just got through talking about it, which is the research aspect. Maybe there's some people out there who are not aware of how important research is to starting a business, especially, I would say, a physical product that's being sold, right?
mhm.
When you're selling merchandise, whether it be a journal or t-shirts or any other physical product, research is a pivotal part of the process. Can you talk through what that looks like? If somebody is completely new to starting a business, where should they start when it comes to researching?
So when it comes to research, and I will be honest, I think that people kind of got to get like the basic stuff down.
Mhm.
So basic stuff like researching business names, like what makes sense, especially for your industry. Researching color theory. When you putting together these logos and these colors and all that other stuff, like don't just throw a color together. Research, what do these colors mean and what is it that I am trying to evoke when people see my brand. I think sometimes it takes kind of just knowing, like, going beyond just the surface level stuff. Because the fun stuff is thinking, okay, I'm gonna take these pictures and make this website and do all this stuff. That's fun. But like being able to, like, for instance, like when I was figuring out journals, I didn't know that what I wanted was called a double YRO. And
Mm.
so the thing about it is you have to get out of your own way and let that ego go. You cannot be self-righteous, because you will be surprised who will be willing to help you, even if they don't know you. And I
Mm.
remember when I was calling around trying to figure out paper, I wish I even knew this woman's name. I don't even know. But I happened to hop on the phone with some woman in a whole nother state who
Mhm.
happened to produce like paper. Like she printed, she was a print specialist, whatever. She was a subject matter expert.
Okay.
And I was telling her, like, okay, I'm looking to print a journal. I want this, I want that, I want that. And she literally gave me all the specifications in the lingo
Mm.
of the print world. And so
Okay.
when I began to put together a template to be sent out to find manufacturers, I
Mhm.
was able to then articulate what it was I was looking for better than what I thought I knew, because this woman hopped on the phone and helped me. I also will feel like this. It is so much free information out there. Google, Google, Google. And also find, because right now, everybody think they a coach, child. Everybody think they a coach. Okay.
Facts.
So everybody think they a coach, but the thing about being a coach is you have to get off the ground. And what comes with getting off the ground is you have to give out something free in order for people to choose to invest in you. So when you find these coaches who are trying to get off the ground and they like, I got to free this, I got to free that, download it. Even if you don't need it in the moment, even if you don't need it 2 weeks from now, download it, get it into your email. So when you need it, it's there. Because
Mhm.
once you have that information, you own it. Like you have it.
Right.
It's your information to tap into. And that
Mhm.
was something that I did very much so is I found a lot of free resources of a bunch of other people who did research in areas that I didn't know anything about, but I knew at some point it would be helpful.
Okay.
I also think don't be afraid to be wrong or look
Mm.
like you don't know what you're talking about, which goes back to just kind of like that ego thing or like
Mhm.
perfectionist or whatever that looks like. Um, Ask all the questions. Ask all the questions and pay attention to, like I said, podcasts. Like so many people drop so much free information. You just have to listen.
Mhm.
Another thing I like to do is when I am on my personal account and I'm looking at these people who are super successful, I don't pay attention to necessarily all the bling and the this and the vacations.
Mhm.
When they drop, I worked with this person to get this. I go look on that person page. Like I'm
Mm.
constantly, I will tap, tap, tap into a world that I didn't even know existed
Right.
because of the free resources. You know, like
Yes.
I will find my, and that's the thing is naturally I get into analysis paralysis. So for me, research is fun. I want to learn. I want to know more. Um, and so I would say definitely look for the free stuff. I would also just say literally Google how to start a business
Mm.
and see what's on that list and see the things that you need to accomplish that you can't think about and write those. One thing I'm big, big, big on is I keep, and if you look around my apartment, I have big post-it note papers of
Mm.
things that I want to do or things that I'm in the process of doing. And I
Mhm.
write it down and tick it off as I'm done
I like
because
that.
I have so many moving parts. I can't keep it all in my head. And so,
Mhm.
literally, like a little spoiler alert, I'm looking to relocate. And so I
Okay.
have a big whatchamacallit about find leasing agents, figure out how do I want to do U-Haul, U-Pack, whatever,
Mhm.
solidify this by the end of May, solidify this by 2 weeks into June. Like
Mm.
set goals for yourself. So therefore you don't start the ideal of thinking I want to be an entrepreneur, but then
Mhm.
you're not moving along the process of getting those things put into place. Set deadlines to say, by this time, I'm going to register my name as an LLC. By this time, I'm going to have my website up. Or by
Mhm.
this time, I want to find somebody to help me do my website.
Right.
Figure out where you want to be along the process. So at some point, you have a day where you want to launch. Even if it's not perfect, have the baseline things put into place. Because the thing is, you don't want to do all that work and they be like, I'm scared. What was this all for?
Yeah.
Why did you do this if you didn't want people to know about it?
Mhm.
And the thing about it is, one thing I had to tell myself is people don't know what people don't know. So nobody
Right.
knows that I really didn't care about the way that my first journal was produced. They don't know that. I just know that. Now the people
Mhm.
who listen to the podcast will know, but it's the
Right.
person who will listen. But the thing is, people don't know what you have in your head, what you've
Mhm.
produced, and how they like. So put it out there.
Right.
Do the necessary work, do the research, and put it out there. It'll be fine.
Oh man, I love that. And going back to your experience with starting a journal and getting into the stationery industry, you mentioned that you had no previous knowledge or understanding. This was completely new. So
Mhm.
one of the things that we're all about is not just being Black entrepreneurs, but being courageous Black entrepreneurs. And I would categorize you as that. Because when you dive into an industry that you have no prior knowledge, no prior skills, that takes a lot of courage. And I'm curious, what did that process look like when you were kind of wading through the unknown? What gave you that courage that you needed to say, even though I don't know this now, I'm gonna keep pushing forward?
Community.
Mm. So important.
Community. I think it is so important to have people around you. Like, I think one thing as I'm getting older now, I am starting to realize like the different pockets of friends that I
Mm.
have. And what I have now had to develop is a pocket of friends who are also on an entrepreneurial journey. And
Right.
whether that is service based
Mhm.
business or product based business,
Mhm.
having now a community. Now, I will say when I started out, my community looked different. It's kind of like being in college, especially if
Mhm.
you're a first time college student and trying to figure out like what little social group you want to join or like what little
Mhm.
organization you want to be a part of. It kind of feels like that, but like real life as an adult.
Mhm.
And so I had to try out different communal groups in order to
Okay.
figure out which one worked. And once I found that, it was golden. And the reason why
Mhm.
is because sometimes it takes for people to see your vision beyond what you can see it. And for
Mhm.
people to reassure you and say, that is an amazing idea. You are
Right.
moving in the right direction. You are doing exactly what you need to do.
Mhm.
And I think it just sometimes takes to be in a space where other women, like, well, my community is full of other women, Black women to be
Mhm.
specific, and I think something about not only being able to share your wins,
Mhm.
but to hear about other women's wins
Yes.
motivates you to be like, yes, sis, like we are
Yes.
doing it. It is just this communal thing.
Mhm.
And so while I am a first
Mhm.
time entrepreneur, it doesn't feel lonely because I've created
Mhm.
that community for myself. It doesn't feel like I'm just out on this thing alone
Mhm.
trying to navigate it.
Mhm.
Um, I have a village. I have a support group. And even like with me and one of my homegirls right now,
Mhm.
we always do this like virtual co-working session. So she'll text me, "Hey,
Mm.
what up? I'm getting on today. You getting on?" And literally we will set up our computers, put on
Mhm.
Zoom, we'll check in. Hey, what's your focus today? Okay, so today I'm trying to do I got some emails to answer, blah, 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 blah. And then boom, we going on mute and we're working.
Mm. I
And
like
so,
that.
yeah, she's all the way in Illinois. I'm in Texas.
Wow.
Thankfully, we're on the same time zone.
Right.
But even if we
That does help.
if we weren't, we had to figure that out. But
Right.
that's what we do.
Yeah.
And that's our like accountability space. That's also our vulnerability space. We get in there and we be like, girl, it's been a long week. I'm probably gonna try to pump out like 2 hours of work, and then after
Mhm.
that, I have to be done.
Mm.
I also think, and something that I want to make sure I touch on because it's so important, is one of the things that I admire so much about community, especially as an entrepreneur, is that we never, ever, ever give each other grief about needing to rest. If we got on and we checked in, and it's like, y'all, I didn't even get nothing done today. As a matter of fact, I didn't even get a lot done this week because I have been tired and I've needed to rest. There has never been this like hustle mentality of like, no sleep, sis. We got to get out here and get this bag. No, that's not
Right.
the case. It's like take the time you need. You are a
Mhm.
human being. You're juggling multiple things. There were moms in the group, there were wives in the group, whatever. It's like it's
Yeah.
okay. If you get three things accomplished, if you get nothing accomplished, it's fine.
Mhm.
So I think the way that I've been able to navigate this thing is just like literally building a solid community of people who get it.
Oh man, yeah, I share it so often on the podcast. It's almost becoming like a motto in a sense. Is I truly believe that the true key to success are relationships,
Yes.
and to your point right there, being able to be successful is having that community of women for you that you
Hmm.
can go to and get that support. They're not, like you said, giving you grief if you need to rest, or understanding the fact that, hey, you're working through these things. Sometimes you need
Yes,
to take a step back, and having that mutual support, having that accountability, it is vitally, vitally important. So yeah, I'm so glad that you touched on that because it's key.
it
The
is.
next thing that I really wanted to kind of dive into is the process of your first product launch. What did that look like? Because I know that there are going to be some of our listeners who will start businesses that are based on selling physical products. And I
Hmm.
wanted to know, what did that process look like for you? What's required essentially to have a successful product launch?
Yeah. So that's such a tricky question sometimes because I feel like it can shift. So I'll do my
Okay.
best to answer this, but there may be a little bit of to be honest. So one of the things I think that is very notable about having a product launch is obviously having product. If possible, it is not a
Mhm.
requirement, but if possible, have more than one product. So even
Okay.
if that's a variation in size, if that's a variation in color, the
Mhm.
reason why that's important is because it gives people options to buy, which could increase purchases.
Okay.
Because if they have more than one thing to choose from, they could choose one, the other, or both, and that's more purchases, more conversion.
Mhm.
Um, I think also when it comes to having a good solid platform, because the last thing
Okay.
you want is to launch and
Mhm.
then your website is busted. So
Mm.
having a platform, but then even if it's your starter platform, having decent visuals. Don't
Okay.
look for perfection, because perfection it's not there. It's not. It will keep you from launching, to be
Yeah, we talking
honest.
about the first product launch.
Listen, the first
Right.
product launch,
This is
like,
the first one, baby.
give
There's
ourselves some
room
grace
for
here.
improvement.
Please, are we in the long haul? Once
Yeah.
again, once you get your money up, you can invest
Yes.
in a website designer and listen, go crazy. But for now, keep it simple.
Right.
The main functionality of the website is, can people go on there? Can they make a purchase? Will the purchase go through?
Mhm.
Anything else you put on there is cute, but can they go on there and make a successful purchase and it go through without any glitches? That's the
Right.
goal. Another thing about a successful launch is you need to create the hype around it. You need to get the awareness out. So one of the things is, I know when I first started, because I have more followers, which is not a lot, but more on my Instagram, on my
Mhm.
personal one, because obviously I was building up my business one, is
Mhm.
days before I launched, I created hype around it. So I was
Okay.
asking stuff, getting engagement, and telling people, so I got something coming. Like, keep your eyes open. I got something, because people love the essence of surprise.
Mhm.
And so if you put out good visuals, and at the time, Reels wasn't so big, so I got away with putting out a picture. Now
Right.
you got to get your
It's
videographer.
it's a whole new ball game now. It's everything is video now, man.
For real. But to speak to that though, I would say, don't once again go crazy spending a lot of money on a videographer. Get you a
Mm.
decent little tripod from
Mhm.
Amazon, set your
Okay.
iPhone up, maybe get you a little ring light, and try to
Mhm.
do as much of it as you can on your own.
Okay.
Because the thing about it is this, especially, like, I funded my business 100% on my
Okay.
own.
Okay.
No grants, no angel investors, no nothing. Everything came
Mhm.
from my 9 to 5 job, and
Mhm.
any little bit of savings I was willing to use. And so, don't go spending a lot of money. Like, as much as you
Mhm.
can, try to create hype around it. Now,
Mhm.
using the visual aspects of a video, and like I said, create this, like, essence of surprise, this captivating whatever, something that you just like, y'all gonna go crazy when I drop this. Like,
Right.
that's what you got to do. I think one of the things which has consistently also been a pain point for me, that I have constantly been doing research and constantly reading about, is figure
Mhm.
out your price point.
Mm.
When you do a product launch,
Mhm.
don't get greedy with the money. There is
Mhm.
this, like, very small window of what people are willing to pay for certain things.
Okay.
And you have to be able to figure out, like, how much am I, number one, covering the cost of unit per price per unit, but then
Mhm.
also thinking about shipping, thinking about, like, any other shipping stuff, that's like any marketing materials you're putting in there, and figuring out how do you make a profit without going
Mhm.
crazy.
Okay.
Because if your price is too much, people won't pay. So, like,
Right.
I've been reading about the psychology of pricing and how
Mm.
that works.
I'm
So
curious,
that's,
what resource are you reading that's giving you that insight?
what? So there are books about the
Okay.
psychology of pricing. So I started off just kind of reading stuff on the internet. And
Mhm.
then right now I am reading the psychology of, I don't know who it is, but the psychology
Mhm.
of pricing and what that looks like. And then just
Okay.
now I've shifted from a lot of novels to a lot of
Mhm.
the stuff I read is about business.
Nice. So
I'm
that's the
also
actual name of the book, The Psychology of
the
Pricing?
psychology of pricing.
Okay, yeah, I'm gonna have to add that to my list. I
Yes,
appreciate that. Yeah, I had
of
to deviate
course.
for a minute because I'm like, hold on, didn't hear about that before. Let me note that down.
Yes, because the thing is, there is a reason why people sometimes will choose a odd number, like a 9, a 5, a 7, at the
Mhm.
end of a price. Like, if you notice,
Mm.
Walmart prices do that,
Mhm.
versus sometimes you'll go somewhere and it ends in a double zero.
Right.
Well, apparently the double zero makes products look more of value,
Mm.
versus having something that ends in a odd number. It kind of gives it, I don't want to say lower value, but it definitely
Mhm.
makes it more for it's more affordable for living wage individuals.
Okay.
So you have
Okay.
to think about, how do I want my product to come off? Like, who do I
Mhm.
want to sell this to? What is my target
Mhm.
audience? And
Okay.
thinking about those type of things. When I tell you, we can talk about that at all, because listen,
Yo. Definitely have to have you come back, man. We can do a whole master class.
it's a lot. Like, seriously, it is so much. So And once again, launching a product, don't get too into the nuance of those things because it'll
Okay.
keep you from launching. Do the basics of figuring it out because once again, in the long haul, as you continue to launch products, you modify your pricing and you start to figure that out. And as you phase certain products out, bring new products in, that can reflect the research you've done in
Okay.
your new pricing method or whatever that looks like.
Yes.
So none of what I think the thing is going into this product launch, when it is your first, none of this is written in stone. You are the owner of your business. You can change these things as time progresses.
Right.
The more
That's
you
so true.
know, yes, the better decisions you can make. Because I think about it. Look at people with logos. McDonald's ain't kept the same logo over the years. Nike hasn't kept the same logo over the years. These people have modified and pivoted. That to word for business. Be ready to pivot because it's gonna change. That's just the
Right.
reality of it. So I can't, even in my own business, I can't get married to nothing because I'm like, a year from now, I'll be like, this doesn't work. I'm gonna rebrand. Who knows? Whatever.
Yes.
Let me think. Also with just a product launch. So another thing that I wasn't prepared for, but I definitely say is when it comes to pricing, make sure you're making enough money, especially if you are a product based business, to, for lack of better words, re up on your product.
Okay.
Because if you sell out,
You better be able to re-up, baby.
you gotta be able to re-up, okay? If
Yo,
you sell
part
out,
of the game, baby.
right, that's a bomb when you sell out, but you have to replenish those products.
Right.
So are you making enough money to literally replenish your products? Like, are you breaking even or are you making or are you making profit? That's the thing. Because one thing you don't want to do is go too long on your website without having stuff available. Stuff can't be sold out forever. So you need to be able to re-up. And that's another thing. When you're looking for suppliers, ask them, what's your turnover time? Because I can't be waiting months to get product back. I need you to be able to give me my stuff right away if I got people requesting it. So just a little something that I had to think about when I was looking for suppliers. But
no, that's good.
yeah, go ahead,
No,
please.
go ahead. Go ahead.
Oh, I was
I
gonna
didn't
say,
mean to
I
cut you
don't
off.
even know anything else when it comes to launching. Just, make it captivating, get people to buy in and, have fun with it. Like, be excited. You're launching a business. Don't get too stressed out about the little details. Like, you will figure it out as you go.
Yeah. And the question that I was going to ask is more so pertaining to who you're selling to, right? So for you,
Ooh.
did you leverage primarily social media? Did you have an email list? Like, were you selling to like warm prospects? Were you selling to like cold prospects? Like, what do you think people should focus on when it comes to who they're presenting their product to, when it comes to maybe their first initial product launches?
Yeah. So I absolutely focused on my current community. So
Okay.
surprisingly, while I focused so much on Instagram, most of my sales came from Facebook, which is so crazy. I didn't expect that.
Mhm. Was
But
that with or without Facebook ads?
I still haven't invested in
Nice.
Facebook ads. Yeah, I still
All
haven't.
organic, baby. Yo, you can't beat that.
Listen, and I sold more than half of my products
Wow.
my first launch. So it
Wow.
was more success. When I say the
Mhm.
notifications kept coming in, I started crying. And anybody who know me, I'm not a crier, but it was tears of
Yo.
joy. Like, I'm
Yo,
like,
that's
thank
amazing.
y'all.
Yeah.
For real. I'm like, thank you, thank you.
Yes.
But yeah, so the thing is, I started off selling to the people who I knew. And then now I'm starting to branch out and now I'm starting to sell, which is such of like, I don't know, a humbling moment, so to speak, is to sell to strangers. Cause it's like, you don't even know me and you like my product enough to invest. Thank
Yes.
you. So yeah, definitely started off with people who I knew. But I also
Nice.
think I knew that the people who I knew were journal users as well, were journal consumers or stationary consumers, if you will. Just based on how and where I met a lot of people, which is through
Okay.
education. I knew that a lot of those people would be willing to invest in a journal because it's kind of like the way in which, they worked in that space. So it
I
worked
like that.
out.
That's smart. And looking beyond like that first initial product launch, how have you leveraged like your customer base? Like whether that's through your email, building your email list, like what does that look like for you when it comes to not just getting new buyers, but getting repeating clients? When you drop a new product, the same people that bought the last one are now coming back to buy the new one. How are you leveraging that in your business?
Absolutely. So I do have an email list,
Hmm.
which I am doing my best to manage. It could be a lot,
Hmm.
but I definitely do my best to manage. And also, I would say primarily social media.
Okay.
I think social media is just such a quick, easy way to get like outreach or just get
Hmm.
whatever out to people, product launches, so on and so forth.
Hmm.
That has definitely been my way, but something that I have also newly discovered. So last weekend, I did my
Hmm.
very first vendor fair.
Oh, nice.
I was kind of right trying to navigate that, but then I met an amazing woman who was
Mm,
hosting a vendor fair. Who was like, "I would love for you to be there," and I'm like, "Okay, I'm just gonna do it." And it
right.
was 2 weeks before
Mm,
the vendor fair was gonna happen,
wow.
so I had to hurry up and be like,
You
"I need a
really made it
POS system."
happen.
Like, luckily, I'm like, let me get my POS system set up. Let me figure out
Hmm.
what I want this table to look like. And to be honest, I think vendor fairs are like, for me, the way to go.
Hmm.
As a
Okay.
person who does not really naturally post a lot on social media, the
Hmm.
ability for me to sell my product in person felt so much more natural and so much more
Mm,
comfortable. And I
nice.
feel like it creates a lot of easy buy-in because I can on the spot answer any questions that somebody has about the journals.
Right.
And so that is another way that I'll be leveraging
Hmm.
is definitely through vendor fairs because
Nice.
people come in the shop, so it's
Hmm.
something that it's like that's like going into a mall. It's like I'm looking for something.
Right.
Whereas on social media or whatever, I feel like people get on your
Hmm.
website and they're like, I don't
Yeah.
know, maybe, and it's kind of
And
hard.
and another thing that comes to mind too with the vendor fair is even you kind of have, for lack of a better term, you have two things that you can receive from a person, right? Which is
Mhm.
one, the primary being a sale. But even people that stop by, they may not buy
Yes,
anything, but show an interest in your product. You're like, hey, I have this email list. Let's
yes,
stay in contact. Give me the, put the email down. You'll be on the list. You ain't got to necessarily buy none today, but then you have solidified what? Somebody that you can go back to. And whenever you're sending emails out, continue to remind them of your products and eventually turn them into a buying happy customer at some point
there
in the
you go.
future. Yeah.
Absolutely, absolutely, and
Yeah.
that's something I did is create or did collect
Mhm.
those emails and give out a lot of business cards. So
Nice. Yeah.
yeah.
That's the way to do it. That's the way to do it. Now, what I want to do now is kind of segment into a part of the show where I like to call it the goodie bag, which is where we highlight some of those tools, those resources, those books, the things that you use to help you in your business. What would you say are some of your go-to tools or even some books or resources that have helped you along your journey?
For sure. So, my tried and true pen and paper.
Yes.
Definitely
And
pen
your
and
journal,
paper.
baby.
Grab a journal so you can
Get
go
this
ahead and
journal.
write down your vision today. Um, but yes, so definitely pen and paper.
Mhm.
And I would say, once again, I'm a big visual person, so I love the huge post-it note paper and putting that
Okay.
around my apartment so that I can constantly see it and constantly like have a reminder of what I have to get done. When it comes to like software, so
Mhm.
definitely my personal platform is Shopify.
Okay.
I love it because of the analytical aspect. I love it because of the plugins and like it's
Mhm.
very easy navigation as a person who is new to having a business. I know some
Mhm.
people have like Squarespace,
Mhm.
but for me, Shopify works, and so it's to me, like I said, it's pretty user friendly. Definitely for a person like me who also does not like social media is Planoly. Um,
Okay.
Planoly allows you to upload whatever content, plan out your captions, all of that
Oh, nice.
jazz, and you can plan out your content on when you want it to post.
Okay.
Now the thing is, I don't think it does it for like reels or
Mhm.
carousels.
Okay.
So I'll just have to like do those things the day
Mhm.
of whenever I want to post it. But any like
Mhm.
just basic photos or what have you, easily use Planoly.
Nice.
Um, Flowdesk is my email of choice, my whatchamacallit, where I get emails out to
Mhm.
my subscribers.
Okay.
I find that to also be user friendly because they have templates, and so I don't have to
Okay.
think of all the like the content of what I want to say on my own or the
Mhm.
copy. They
Mhm.
have some stuff, and I could just like plug in whatever I want to
Nice.
say, and it's just much easier when you don't have to think of
Mhm.
everything from scratch.
Right.
Canva,
Mhm.
because I was designing my journals on my own and I am not a graphic designer. And so Canva was definitely I can't even begin to tell you. Getting Canva
Mhm.
Pro changed the game for me, because it allowed me to have access to
I
everything I
love that.
needed. Yes, it's definitely worth the investment.
Okay.
Um, Let me think. I actually made like a little list. Let me see.
Okay.
Float. I know I had to because I'm like, I can't remember all these things.
Yo,
Uh,
it's like the tools have integrated themselves into our lives to a point where it just becomes almost organic. Like we
it
forget, oh yeah, I do use that.
does.
Oh yeah, like probably when we get off of here, you probably gonna be like, oh yeah, I forgot I used that. You're gonna go for your phone and be like, man, I forgot to mention that one.
It's so true because it's just like once you get those procedures put into place, it's like
Hmm.
organically you just go to it and be like, okay, boom,
Yes.
boom, boom. So yeah, I probably will literally forget. But of course, your IG, Snap. I
Yes.
feel like Snapchat to me is easier to record in. So I'll record
Okay.
my videos in IG. I mean, in
Mhm.
Snapchat, download them, upload them to IG. A
Oh,
lot of
nice.
work, but here we are. But books. Let me get to books.
Yes.
So, the psychology of pricing, what customers crave is one that
Hmm.
I'm in the middle of reading. I can't
Okay.
remember these art authors are.
No pressure to it. So, yo, sometimes it'd be hard enough to remember the name of the book. Man, like you going for brownie points if you get the name and the author. So like
Listen,
I promise you, I'm not gonna put no pressure on you to recall both the name of the book and the author.
thank you, because I will literally like butcher something and I'm like, that is not this person's name. Who is that? I don't even know. So I will definitely share the books, but
Yes,
definitely, if you can look up the authors, all these people
I
I have in
got you.
Goodreads too. So
Okay.
I don't even remember reads, but I keep a running list of
Hmm.
books that I come across. And
Hmm.
when I'm on my profile on IG and these other entrepreneurs share books they read, I'm like,
Yes.
noted.
Nice.
Also, there's a book that I'm also in the process of reading. It's called Hey Whipple Squeeze This.
Mm.
Very crazy title, but it is
Never
all
heard of
about
it.
marketing and how to
Really?
market. Yes, it's such
Wow.
actually a very good read.
Yo, so
Um,
many books out here, man.
it
Like so
is.
many I've never even heard of. I'll be like, never even heard of that book.
It's so good. And like people who are in advertising said
Mhm.
that the book is like tried and true. And so I'm in the
Mm.
middle of reading that. And it's very, very good read, especially
Yeah.
as a person who doesn't have like a quote quote marketing background.
Mhm.
It breaks it down. Like it definitely tells you like do
Nice.
not overthink it. You got it. But you know what? So one small tidbit. So
What's that?
growing up, I did
Mhm.
want to become a radio personality. So one of the things that I do is I listen to a lot of podcasts, especially
Nice.
about entrepreneurs. So Miley Teal,
Mhm.
My Taught You podcast is
Mhm.
literally my go-to. I probably could quote some of her words like word for
I
word.
love that.
She's so bomb. I call
Mhm.
her my virtual mentor. She doesn't know I exist, but I know
She
she
will.
does.
Yo, trust. One of these days, you know
We
what they
gonna
say
meet.
about the degrees of separation, man. I promise you. It's
Listen,
no deeper than 6 people, man.
that's
It's
it.
many times it's less than that.
It really is. It really is. So she don't know. Like one day we're gonna meet. Like I
Right.
absolutely adore her.
Oh,
I listen to that podcast. I
mhm.
listen to Behind the Brilliance.
Okay.
Oh my God, what is it? Her name is escaping me, but she does some really, really good podcasts, kind of like just about literally kind of getting to success, so to speak. It's kind of
Mm.
very similar of just like maintaining success, things like that.
Mhm.
And there's a podcast I listen to called The Science of Success,
Mm.
that has a lot of good stuff.
You dropping some good
Listen,
resources on us right now, and I'm loving it.
I consume a lot. You know, other small things. It's I won't say it's necessarily about business, but I just think it's
Mhm.
about the way you think. Like I think changing
Yes.
your paradigm and how you process the world in which you move.
Bible.
Cheryl Strayed
Mm.
has a book called Tiny Little Things, I believe,
Mm.
and she is a columnist who people write
Mhm.
into for advice.
Okay.
I probably read that book yearly. And the reason
Wow.
why is because it humbles me in a way where, you know, they say you throw all your problems into a whatchamacallit,
Mhm.
circle and you want your stuff back when you see what other people got.
Mhm.
That's what I feel like that book does for me.
Wow.
Is it keeps my perspective in check. And
Okay.
sometimes I need that.
Mhm.
Um, and Oprah, what I know for sure,
Mhm.
you know, you can't go wrong with love. Oh, big old, actually, big old.
That
So
is so
yeah,
funny. Yeah.
Those are definitely some of the books I do want to go back and read, like Shoe Dog, the
Hmm.
owner of whatchamacallit, some of those other books.
Yeah.
Ego is the Enemy, some of
Hmm.
those, like they're very much on my list. But
Nice.
yeah, definitely between podcasts and some of these books, that's how I spend my free time.
Yo, like you mentioned, you made that shift from fiction to now being about your business, and that's
Yes,
real talk. Yeah,
seriously.
I actually last year I read Ego is the Enemy. That was a really good
Oh,
book. Yeah,
was
so I
it?
think that you'll definitely enjoy that one. And I was going to ask you, you had mentioned earlier about marketing. Are you still looking for other marketing books to kind of help you in that area?
Absolutely.
Okay.
I'm looking at marketing books. And then also, what
Hmm.
I have been doing is I have been following a lot of content creators. So,
Hmm.
people who kind of make copy or whatever are like, when it comes to
Hmm.
social media, there's actually one woman who I've invested in where
Hmm.
she writes copy
Oh,
and you
wow.
can literally use it for captions on your Instagram.
Oh,
And so, it's
nice.
nice because I don't have to think of it. I can just get a
Yeah.
picture, copy whatever it is that she created, and then just
Hmm.
input my own
Hmm.
information. And sometimes, like, I don't say you have to invest in those things, but if you
Hmm.
have the extra money to
Right.
invest, anything you can do that can kind of limit you having to think about it and having to
Hmm.
use your brain power,
Yeah, it
outsource is
helps.
it's the key to success.
It definitely is.
It
I
is.
have to agree with you there. Yeah, and the reason why I bring it up is because there was a book that I read earlier this year on marketing that was a game changer, and
Oh,
it's called the 22, I think, irrefutable laws of marketing. So like
mm,
what it tells you is pretty much 22 laws about marketing that we shouldn't break, and it gives you a lot of great examples of where people have broken those rules and
interesting.
how it hasn't produced the results that they would have wanted. So I know for me, that book was really eye opening when it comes to deciding to sell more than one product type, like going into different categories. They tell you what some of the pros and the cons of doing that are, how it can impact your business. And I would just say, if you're interested in learning a little bit of information about marketing, that was a really good book that I read earlier on marketing.
Absolutely. I'll definitely have to add that to my list for sure.
And don't ask me the author. I can remember the name of the book just barely.
That's
But the
okay.
author, man, I probably I can't. That one's not in the memory bank.
That's okay. Trust me. I get it. I completely get
Yeah.
it.
And the thing about it, it's an older book, but a lot of those laws and those principles they still apply to today for
Absolutely.
sure. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah,
Yeah.
I'll definitely have to look for that.
Okay.
For
Yo, so
sure. Thank you.
things up. One last thing that I always like to do is kind of talk to my guests about their sauce, right? What's your sauce for
Mm.
success? And I think that one of the main things that attributes to our success are our daily habits. So I would love to know, what are some of your daily habits, the things that you do on an everyday basis? I think we can guess one.
You know,
I think spoiler alert, I think we may know one of them. But what are some of those daily habits that you attribute to your success in business and in life?
for sure. So, no shocker here. Spoiler alert. Definitely journal.
Right.
So, definitely that,
Yes.
because it is so important for
Mhm.
growth. You know what? Also, a thing that I think is so important is I don't deny myself rest.
Mm.
Um, I try subscribing to the hustle culture of working, whatever. And
It's
baby,
tough.
listen, I'm in my mid 30s. I cannot do it. I just
Yeah,
cannot.
I don't know how many
Listen,
people do it.
I'm like, so how many hours of sleep did you get? Let's count
Right.
together because that just
Yeah.
would not work for me.
Like
Um,
we need to get two hands up for
listen,
that one. Like I'm not Mr. One Hand when it comes to sleeping.
likewise, and I have become unapologetic about it. Like,
Yeah.
my friends know, if they call me probably after 9:30 and I don't
Mhm.
answer, they're like, L'Oreal sleep. And I'm like, you're right about it.
Yeah.
And sometimes even before I go to sleep, I have now become so all about do not disturb. So when
Mm.
I tell you I will put my phone on do not disturb probably an hour before I'm ready to go to sleep so I can just wind down.
Right.
Because I'm like, it's not an emergency. Call me tomorrow. Text me
Right.
tomorrow. I'll get back to you. I'm alive. I'm well. I'm just resting. Like,
Mhm.
Jesus.
Yes,
Rest is resilience.
it
Listen,
is.
it's a thing for real. I think also finding a balance to have fun.
Mhm.
While I think building a business is an amazing thing, I
Mhm.
don't want to build all this and miss out on life.
Right.
So if something else comes up where I want to
Mhm.
go, especially now that the world is like opening back up,
Mhm.
um, if something comes up and one of my homegirls is like, "Hey, you want to go grab brunch? Whatever." I'm gonna create time for that, just like I create
Mhm.
time for my business, because I don't want
Yeah.
to get so caught up in all of this that I wake up and look back and be like, "Child, I've been building this business for X amount of time, and I have been missing out on enjoying life."
Mhm. Yeah.
Because there will always be work to be done. There will always be a to-do list with more items that will
Mhm.
always accumulate. Like there will always be more.
Right.
So day to day, I make sure I take time to rest. I get outside. I have a
Mhm.
dog, so that to me has kind of been my way of being like, I'm gonna get a fresh breath of air. Let me take her outside to go for a walk.
Right.
Because vitamin D,
Mhm.
getting out, getting a little sunshine, some
So,
fresh air. Every day I get out, and like probably 2 times a day, take her
okay.
for a walk.
Important.
Um, for what it is, also, I wouldn't say I'm like overly religious.
Mhm.
A little spiritual maybe, but every
Mhm.
day I always take a moment to think about like what has brought me joy today. I
Yes.
think it's so easy to be negative and so easy to get bogged down, especially in the world we live in right now.
Mhm.
Listen, there's so much negativity to consume. Trust me,
Right.
it's the cup runneth
It's there
over. It's there.
everywhere.
Listen, it's not hard to find.
Not hard to find at all.
Trust. So every day, I will be intentional about
Mhm.
finding something that brings me joy and carving out time to do that. And it could be this, like, I am a lover of aromatherapy. So I
Mhm.
make points to, let me light an incense, let me light a candle. Let me make some, I like coffee or like chai.
Mhm.
Let me make something good to drink. Let me just sit in this moment and enjoy it.
Right.
This feels good. Let me just sit. It's the
That's
little
important.
things.
Yeah. It's like
Um,
what they say, mindfulness, right?
Mindfulness,
Mhm.
yes. And just like, let me put my phone down and just let me have a minute. Or sometimes I'm like, let me just consume some whatever TV.
Mhm.
Netflix got whatever on. Let me just consume it. This is
Yeah.
funny. This doesn't have nothing to do with my business. This doesn't have nothing to do with whatever. I just want to
Mhm.
sit here and just zone out for 2 seconds.
Yeah, get your little woo side going
Oh,
on.
woosah, you get it? You already know. That's what it is for
Yes.
real. And I think other like daily habits is just feeling the feels. Like if I'm
Mhm.
sad, be
Mhm.
sad. If I'm happy, I'm gonna be happy. Like I think
Mhm.
um just showing up every day and just being in the moment, whatever that moment looks like. Like if it's gloomy and I don't feel like doing it, I'll tell my friend, like, girl, I don't really feel like, just give me a minute.
Right.
You know? So I think just not denying myself of my humanity
Mhm.
and how I feel does, like, if I'm sad, it doesn't have to be permanent. It's very temporary. But I'm not going to force myself to be in an emotion that doesn't feel natural for me day
Mhm.
to day, because
Mhm.
those emotions can also contribute to, the better part of who I want to be. It's like yesterday I was
Okay.
sad, but today I feel better. It's okay. Everything's okay. So
Mhm.
I would definitely say that, but finding a good balance and also create, like I said, the creation of those boundaries,
Mhm.
that really does contribute. Is knowing how far,
Boundaries so important.
listen, what I can do every day and where I have
Mhm.
to cut off that every day. Like I said, at certain times where I'm like, okay, I'm done. No more phone calls, no more text messages for the day.
Mhm.
I've given that all. My office hours are now closed. Catch me tomorrow.
Real talk. It's necessary to do that.
It is, because people will abuse it. People will absolutely abuse it.
It's
So,
quickness,
but
and
definitely
and
like,
and they won't feel no type of way about it either.
absolutely, because they're benefiting from it, so they won't feel away. But you will be somewhere drained.
Mhm.
you
Right.
know. So yeah, I feel like every day I just try to definitely, I think my biggest thing is just finding joy. Finding
Mhm.
something that makes me happy every day is just more important. So
That's your sauce. I
that
love it.
is, that is for
So
real.
before we wrap up, there's a fun little segment I like to close out with my guests called Pick Three, where I'm going to give you the option to pick three random numbers between 1 and 16. There will be a
Okay.
question that will be tied to whatever number you select, and we'll get to see what your responses are. So you ready to play?
Yes.
All right. So what's your first number between 1 and 16?
Two.
Number two. So that question is, what was your first big treat yourself purchase to celebrate the success of your business?
Ooh, oh my God, that's a good question. What was my first treat myself? Um, Cause so the thing is, when I launched, I went back home. I'm originally from Milwaukee, Wisconsin,
Oh,
and something
nice.
about going back home and launching my business felt so
Mhm.
like right.
Yes.
Um, what was my first big purchase? Because while I was at home, my friends threw me a surprise party. I didn't even
Okay.
know.
Yo,
So
see, once
that was
again, the
real
beauty of community.
the beauty of community. Listen. Um, my first big purchase.
Or anything that you did to treat yourself.
Yeah, so you know what? How about let's go with that?
Okay.
So for my birthday last year,
Mhm.
as part of my just like rejuvenation, I went secretly. Nobody knew except for two other people who are the people that came with me.
Uh-huh.
I took a trip to Mexico. We just got up
Oh,
and went.
nice.
Yeah, we just got up and
Okay.
went. There was no social media post about it. There was no whatever. My mama knew where I was and where I was safe. That was all that mattered.
Yeah.
And I was just like, y'all, I gotta get out of here. Can y'all come
Mhm.
with me? And I was like, please, no posting. I was like, that is the only thing
Mhm.
I asked. And
Right.
so, yeah, I felt like that, especially because that was like the post COVID.
Mhm.
So, yeah, well, not post, but post quarantine.
Yes.
But yeah, I think that was probably my first big purchase that I could think of.
That's not yo, and it's beneficial in more than one way too.
Mhm. Absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah, you needed that
Yes.
R&R for sure.
Love it. Can't get
Yes.
enough.
So what's your second number between 1 and 16?
Um, let's go with 10.
Okay, 10. The question is, what was the first business idea that you had and did you launch it or not?
Nope. Like I said, that first one was those t-shirts.
Yes.
And no, I wasn't in love with it. Ugh,
Mhm.
did not feel it at all. So
Nah, that's real. And like I said, there's a lesson in that is being able to recognize that, sometimes you do need to power through, but then there's those other times when it's just like, yo, that's just not the right fit.
listen, gotta listen to that intuition.
Mhm. Yes, shea butter and intuition. Like, look, it's all coming together. You see the synergy. It's beautiful. Yo, that is so dope. I
Absolutely.
love that. I love that. So what's your third number between 1 and 16?
I'm gonna go with 16.
Okay, 16. The question is, what is a notable opportunity that you missed out on or that you were able to take advantage of? So it's totally up to you. You can pick one that you missed out on or one that you took advantage of.
Um, let me think.
Take your time.
I know. I'm like, you know what? I will go with this vendor fair that I took
Hmm.
advantage of.
Yes.
Because I have so many, like I said, right now, I'm trying to literally relocate out
Mhm.
the state, and that
Okay.
is like a full plate
Yeah.
of
That
planning.
moving down the block or moving,
Listen,
to another city is one thing, man. Picking up and moving from to another state is a whole nother. Oh man,
listen,
God be
and
with you.
woo, and I'm trying. Literally, my time that I'm moving is at the end of June,
Okay.
so very very small window of time. It feels like a lot, but it is
Mhm.
not because May will be over before you know it.
Right.
And so, not to mention when she offered the opportunity to me, it was 2 weeks before the actual event was planned to
Mm.
happen.
Mhm.
And so part of me went back and forth like, I don't have time for this right now. Like, this is not in my plans. This is
Mhm.
not what I had on my radar. But I wrote out, I'm like, okay,
Mhm.
let me think. What exactly do I, before I just completely
Mhm.
say no to the opportunity, what
Mhm.
is it that I need? And
Mhm.
am I able to get easy access to these things? And so,
Mm.
once I figured it out, I was like, okay, I can do it. And so I did it and I enjoyed it. And I'm glad that I did it. So it was a good opportunity.
Look, and not only was it beneficial for you, but business wise as well.
It was good. It was
Yes.
good.
See?
Yes,
Okay.
absolutely.
Yo, taking advantage of those opportunities. That's what life is all about.
Yes.
Oh man, yo, this has been such an honor and a joy having this time to speak with you, L'Oreal. And what I wanted to do before we wrap things up is give you the opportunity. If there are any questions that you like to ask me or any last or closing words you'd like to leave our audience with, by all means, the floor is yours.
Let me ask you this.
Yes.
Since launching your podcast, what has been either the most or one of the most, I guess, valuable pieces of gem that you've heard from any of your podcasts? So what has been either the most or one of the most valuable gems that you've come across?
Oh man, yo, that is so good. Like all of y'all drop gems and in different ways. The one thing that I'll say is I would say I felt a fire lit under me after I had the opportunity to speak with two young brothers, Alex and Marlon. You know, these young brothers were engineers, got into
Mm.
entrepreneurship. They retired as engineers in their 20s and have become successful entrepreneurs. And that in and of itself was just like, yeah, I
Yes.
wasn't there in my 20s. And like just seeing where y'all at in y'all 20s doing this is so motivating. But two
Yes.
things that they dropped on me. They revealed to me how important it is for me to start focusing on real estate. And I was really about to go all in on that until you see how things are.
Mhm.
The current real estate isn't the thing to be diving into at this point in time,
Yeah.
especially for a newbie like myself. But it's one of those things that I saw was possible. They were telling me about like house hacking and how you can
Mm.
get into real estate through utilizing that and how it can be extremely beneficial for not just building up your rental portfolio, but propelling your other businesses as far as the income that's coming in. And they dropped a gem when it came to a book that I had never heard of. Like you gave me one, but they also shared another one called The E Myth. And
Mm.
it was a book about, like if you have a desire to start a business, they were just saying like this book was a game changer. If they had to just pick one book starting a business that you should read, they were like, it's the E Myth. And I'm like, even I never even heard of it. Like most
Yeah.
like I've either heard people mention a book before and I just haven't got around to reading it. But when they told me about that book, I immediately went out and got it. And I was like, wow, like that book really puts you in a state of mind of knowing whether or not you should start a business and the right foundation to start it on. To your
Hmm.
point earlier, how you were talking about the importance of that foundation. And, despite where you see yourself going in the long run, if you build on the right foundation,
Mhm.
you'll be able to do that. So, yeah, like so many gems that I took away from those brothers, but those were the main two is, getting into house hacking and real estate. And then that book, E Myth, was a game changer.
Wow, I'm gonna have to check that out.
I highly recommend it.
That was good.
Yeah, like if you haven't checked that book out, add it to your list. You
Yes.
will learn so much from it because it speaks towards something that we were talking about before. Getting to that point where you're not doing everything, relying on other people. It talks about how you can get to that place where you're not doing everything in the business, but
Mhm.
you are building a business that essentially can operate without you having to be there doing everything. So it talks about the importance of that.
Okay, I like that. I'm definitely gonna have to check that out.
Yeah. Any
Mhm.
other questions? Any other last words you want to leave
Look,
with us?
my little radio personality coming out. No, I think we're good to go. That was really good though.
That was a good question.
Yeah.
Oh man, yo, this has been a joy. Definitely let everybody know first and foremost how they can show you some love and support, where they can get your journals and get the product in hand, start journaling. Where can they do that? Let them know.
Absolutely. So definitely head over to Shea Butter and Intuition.com. You can go over there. Not only do I have journals, I have crystal pens. So if you
Oh,
are looking to manifest something, I have various pens that can help you do that. So definitely head over and I'll be adding some more stuff just for your podcast. I bet y'all know I have a drop coming end of May, beginning of June. I'm working on it right now. It's in production. And so, yes, definitely head over to Shea Butter and Intuition. Also, if you want to follow me on social media, I am Shea Butter and Intuition on Facebook as well as Instagram. My personal, it's on lockdown, but definitely put in a request. I am Loreal, that's Loreal Arnett, Arnet on Instagram. So please come give me a follow.
oh man, yo, L'Oreal, this has been such a joy. You dropped so many gems on us, taught us a lot today. And if you're ever interested in coming back on the podcast, it would be an honor. I got to give a shout out to my girl Sarah for introducing us
Yes.
and allowing us to be able to connect and have such an amazing conversation. So just thank you again for everything that you share with us today. I truly appreciate you and definitely look forward to speaking with you again soon.
Likewise. Thank you so much for having me. I appreciate you.